Jesus told his disciples almost everything. Almost. But there was one secret he kept from them. One truth he said they were not ready to bear. And for 2,000 years, that secret has remained hidden. Until now. What I'm about to share came from a being I helped escape from a government facility in the Nevada desert. He was weak. He was dying. And in exchange for my help, he told me something about Jesus that no church has ever taught. Something that was deliberately left out of every gospel, every scripture, every sermon ever preached. This isn't about faith. This isn't about religion. This is about a piece of information so powerful that Jesus himself chose to withhold it from his closest followers. Why? Because he knew they would misunderstand. He knew the world wasn't ready. He knew that this one truth, revealed too soon, would be twisted and used against the very people it was meant to liberate. But the being I rescued told me the time for secrecy has ended. Humanity is finally ready to hear what Jesus couldn't say 2,000 years ago. I warn you, this revelation will challenge everything you think you know about Christ, about salvation, about the true purpose of his mission on earth. Some of you will reject it. Some of you will feel anger. But some of you will feel a recognition so deep it brings tears to your eyes. If you're ready to hear the secret Jesus hid from his own disciples, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Because what Marcus Chen discovered in that desert didn't just change his understanding of Christianity. It revealed why humanity has been waiting for a salvation that was already given. Now, let me tell you how it all began. Marcus Chen was driving the empty stretch of Highway 375 when his truck started to die. The engine coughed twice, sputtered, and then went silent. The dashboard lights flickered and went dark. No. Marcus guided the truck to the shoulder as it lost momentum. He turned the key. Nothing. Not even a click. Come on. He tried again. Dead. Marcus slammed his palm against the steering wheel and looked out at the darkness surrounding him. The Nevada desert stretched in every direction, flat and featureless under a moonless sky. No other cars, no lights, nothing but sand and silence for miles. At 44, with a failed marriage behind him and a career that had gone nowhere, Marcus was used to things breaking down at the worst possible moment. But this was something else. The truck was only 3 years old, fully maintained. There was no reason for it to simply stop. He pulled out his phone. No signal. Of course. Marcus stepped out of the truck and into the cold desert night. The temperature had dropped at least 30 degrees since sunset. He zipped his jacket and looked up at the stars, more of them visible out here than he had ever seen in Los Angeles. He had driven out to Nevada on impulse. A week of vacation time he needed to use or lose. No destination in mind, just a need to get away from the apartment that felt too empty, from the job that felt too meaningless, from a life that had somehow become something he never planned. Marcus had grown up in a devout Chinese-American Christian household. Church every Sunday, Bible study every Wednesday, youth group, mission trips. His mother had dreamed of him becoming a pastor. His father had prayed over him every night until he left for college. But college had changed things. Philosophy classes that asked questions his faith couldn't answer. Science courses that contradicted the Genesis account he had memorized as a child. And then, his sophomore year, when his younger sister Amy was diagnosed with leukemia. Marcus had prayed. His parents had prayed. The entire church had prayed. They held vigils. They fasted. They believed with absolute conviction that God would heal her. Amy died 3 months after the diagnosis. She was 17. Something broke in Marcus that day, not just his heart, his faith. He watched his parents cling to their beliefs even harder, praising God for taking Amy to heaven, thanking him for her brief life, and Marcus felt nothing but rage. He stopped going to church, stopped praying, stopped believing in a God who would let a 17-year-old girl die while her family begged for her life. 22 years later, he still hadn't found his way back. Marcus worked as a systems analyst for a software company in LA. Decent salary, no passion. He had married Jennifer at 30, divorced her at 40, no kids, no close friends, just work and an empty apartment and the occasional trip to nowhere, like this one. He had chosen the extraterrestrial highway as a kind of joke, a nod to the UFO hunters and conspiracy theorists who gathered in this part of Nevada, hoping to catch a glimpse of something from Area 51. Marcus didn't believe in aliens any more than he believed in God, but there was something appealing about the emptiness out here, the silence, the feeling of being completely alone with his thoughts. Now, stranded on the side of the road with a dead truck and no cell signal, the silence felt less appealing. Marcus opened the hood and stared at the engine. Nothing looked wrong. No smoke, no obvious damage. He touched the battery terminals, solid. He checked the connections, fine. The truck should work, it just didn't. He was about to close the hood when he saw the lights. They came from the south, moving low across the desert. Not headlights, not aircraft lights, something else. A pale blue glow that pulsed as it moved, changing intensity like a heartbeat. Marcus watched, frozen as the lights drew closer. They weren't following the road. They were cutting across the desert floor, maybe half a mile away, moving fast and then suddenly stopping. Then he heard the sound. Vehicles, multiple engines, coming from the same direction as the lights, but moving on the ground. Marcus squinted into the darkness. He could see shapes now. Black SUVs, at least 4 of them, no headlights, racing across the sand toward the pulsing blue glow. Something was being chased. Marcus knew he should get back in the truck, lock the doors, stay out of whatever was happening. This was clearly military, government, the kind of thing a civilian had no business witnessing, but he didn't move. He stood beside his dead truck and watched as the SUVs surrounded the blue light. He heard shouting, though he couldn't make out words. He saw figures emerge from the vehicles, moving in tactical formation. And then, the blue light shot upward, arcing across the sky and crashed down less than 100 yards from where Marcus stood. The impact was silent. No explosion, no sound at all. Just a flash of light and then darkness. Marcus's heart was pounding. He looked toward the SUVs. They were turning, sweeping the desert with spotlights, searching. He looked toward where the blue light had fallen. Nothing visible, just dark desert. And then, in the silence, he heard something. A voice, not with his ears, inside his head. "Please, help me. They will kill me." Marcus stopped breathing. The voice came again, weaker, desperate. "Please, I know what you have lost. I know why you stopped believing. Help me escape and I will tell you the truth about Jesus, the secret he could not share. Please." Marcus stood in the cold Nevada night, military vehicles scanning the desert behind him, an impossible voice pleading inside his mind. Every rational instinct told him to stay still, stay hidden, let whatever was happening resolve itself without his involvement. But something else stirred inside him, something that had been dead for 22 years. Curiosity. And beneath that, buried so deep he had almost forgotten it existed, hope. Marcus moved toward the crash site. He stayed low, using the darkness as cover. The SUVs were still searching the area near the road, their spotlights sweeping in wide arcs. They hadn't seen the blue light fall this close to his position. Not yet. Marcus reached a shallow ravine and slid down into it. His hands scraped against rocks and sand. His breath came in short, tight gasps. What the hell was he doing? This was insane. He was a systems analyst from Los Angeles, not some action hero, but the voice had known things. It had known about his loss, his broken faith, things no one could know just by looking at him. He crawled forward through the ravine, staying below the sight line of the spotlights. 20 yards, 30. And then he saw it. The creature was huddled against a rock formation, trying to make itself small. It was humanoid, but wrong in ways Marcus's brain struggled to process. The limbs were too long, the head was too large. The skin had a grayish-blue tint that seemed to glow faintly from within, and it was injured. Badly. Dark fluid leaked from wounds on its torso and leg. Its breathing was labored, a wet, rattling sound that Marcus recognized from watching Amy in her final days. He froze. The creature's eyes found him, enormous, completely black, reflecting the distant spotlights like pools of oil. "You came." The voice in his head was weaker now, fading. "Thank you." "What are you?" Marcus whispered. "What's happening?" "No time to explain. They are coming. If they capture me, they will extract what I know and destroy me. I cannot let that happen. Not before I pass on the information I carry." Marcus looked back toward the SUVs. They were moving closer, methodically searching the desert. He had minutes at most. Why me? Why call out to me? Because you are empty enough to receive. The creature's telepathic voice carried something like compassion. Belief fills a mind with noise. Certainty blocks new information. But you, Marcus Chen, have been hollowed out by grief and doubt. You can hear what others cannot. Marcus felt tears sting his eyes. He didn't know if he should feel insulted or understood. What do you want me to do? Help me reach the mountains. There is a place I can hide, a place they cannot scan. If I can rest there, I can heal. And in exchange, I will tell you the secret, the one Jesus kept from his disciples, the one that changes everything. The spotlights swept closer. Voices shouted in the distance. They were organizing a ground search. Marcus looked at the wounded creature, at the dark blood seeping into the sand, at those impossible eyes that held no malice, only desperation. He thought about Amy, about the prayers that went unanswered, about 22 years of emptiness and anger, and he made a decision. Can you move at all? With help, yes. Marcus crawled to the creature's side. Up close, the skin felt cool and smooth, like polished marble. The creature was lighter than it looked, but it was weak, barely able to support its own weight. Lean on me, Marcus said. We'll go slow. They moved through the ravine, staying low, the creature's arm draped over Marcus's shoulders. Every few yards, Marcus would stop, listen, check the position of the search teams. The SUVs had fanned out, but they were focusing on the area near the road. They hadn't expanded this far yet. The mountains were maybe half a mile away. In daylight, on flat ground, it would be an easy walk. In darkness, over rough terrain, with a wounded alien leaning on him, it felt impossible. But Marcus kept moving. What's your name? He whispered as they climbed over a low ridge. Do you have a name? Your language does not have sounds for my name, but you may call me Kael. It is close enough. Kael. Okay. Marcus adjusted his grip as they descended the other side of the ridge. How do you know about Jesus? How do you know about his disciples? I was there. The voice was strained but clear. My kind has been observing your world for millennia. We witnessed his mission. We recorded his teachings, all of them, even the ones that never made it into your scriptures. Marcus felt his heart skip. You recorded Jesus? We record everything of significance. Your species is of great interest to the cosmic community, particularly the teachers who emerge among you. Jesus was one of the most remarkable, but also one of the most misunderstood. They reached the base of the mountains. The terrain grew rockier, harder to navigate, but also provided more cover. Marcus helped Kael into a narrow canyon that cut into the hillside. Here? Marcus asked. Further. There is a cave, natural formation that blocks their scanning technology. Not far now. They pressed on. Marcus's legs burned. His back ached. The creature grew heavier with each step as its strength faded. Finally, Kael pointed to a dark opening in the rock face. There. Marcus half-carried the creature into the cave. It was shallow, maybe 20 feet deep, but the ceiling was high and the floor was relatively flat. He lowered Kael against the back wall as gently as he could. The creature's eyes closed. Its breathing was worse now, more ragged. Hey, Marcus said, stay with me. You said you'd tell me the secret. You promised. I will keep my promise. Kael's eyes opened slowly. But first, I must rest. Just a moment. The journey has cost me greatly. You're dying, aren't you? I am injured. Whether I die depends on the next few hours. If I can enter a healing state, I may survive. But I need time, and I need you to keep watch. Marcus looked toward the cave entrance. The desert was quiet. The search teams hadn't come this direction. Yet. I'll watch, he said, but you have to tell me. Before you go into your healing state, you have to tell me the secret. Kael's eyes met his, those vast black pools that seemed to contain entire galaxies. Very well, Marcus Chen, you have earned this. You helped me when you had no reason to. You risked your safety for a being you do not know. This is the quality Jesus looked for in his disciples, and it is why I will trust you with what I know. Marcus leaned closer. The secret Jesus hid from his disciples, the truth he said they were not ready to bear. It was not about heaven. It was not about salvation. It was about the true nature of who they were and who you are. and why that knowledge had to be protected until humanity was ready to receive it. Marcus held his breath, and in that dark cave, hidden from the forces that hunted them, Cale began to speak. Jesus gathered his disciples on the night before his crucifixion. Cale's voice resonated in Marcus's mind, weak but clear. You know this from your scriptures, the Last Supper, the washing of feet, the prediction of betrayal. But there was another conversation that night, one that was never recorded. Marcus sat cross-legged on the cave floor, his back against the cold stone wall. Outside, the desert was silent. The search teams had not found them, not yet. What conversation? After the meal, Jesus took 3 of his closest disciples aside, Peter, James, John, the same 3 who had witnessed his transfiguration on the mountain. He told them there was something he needed to share, something he had been holding back throughout his entire ministry. The creature's eyes pulsed with a faint inner light as it continued. He said to them, I have many things to tell you, but you cannot bear them now. That's in the Bible, Marcus said. Gospel of John, chapter 16. Yes, but your scriptures do not record what came next, what Jesus actually tried to tell them, and why they could not receive it. Marcus leaned forward. His skepticism warred with a desperate curiosity he couldn't suppress. Jesus told them the truth about their own nature. He said, You are not servants of God. You are not children of God. You are God. The same consciousness that moves through me moves through you. The same power that heals the sick and raises the dead exists within your own being. You do not need me. You never needed me. I came only to show you what you already are. Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. That's blasphemy. That contradicts everything Christianity teaches. Does it? Cale's voice carried a note of gentle challenge. Or does it fulfill what Jesus actually said? He told them they would do greater works than he did. He said the kingdom of heaven was within them. He said, I and the Father are one, and then prayed that they would be one just as he was one. He was not claiming exclusive divinity. He was revealing universal divinity. Marcus shook his head. But the disciples didn't teach that. Paul didn't teach that. The church has never taught that. Because they could not bear it. Jesus was right when he told Peter, James, and John. The truth that night, they recoiled. They fell to their knees and begged him to stop. They said it was too much, too terrifying, too impossible. The creature shifted, wincing at the pain from its wounds. You must understand the context. These men had been raised in a tradition that emphasized the absolute separation between God and humanity. The divine was holy, untouchable. To claim equality with God was the ultimate sin. And here was their teacher telling them that they were not separate from the divine at all, that they never had been. So Jesus just gave up, stopped trying to tell them? He recognized that forcing the truth on unprepared minds would cause more harm than good, so he told them to wait. He said that after he departed, a spirit of truth would come to guide them into all truth. He said that what he could not tell them now, they would understand later. Marcus thought about the history of Christianity, 2,000 years of doctrine, councils, creeds, wars over interpretation. Later never came. Later is now. Cale's eyes held Marcus's gaze. The spirit of truth Jesus promised was not a one-time event. It is a gradual awakening that has been unfolding across centuries, and humanity is finally approaching the threshold where this truth can be received. What threshold? Critical mass of consciousness. When enough individuals awaken to their true nature, the collective field shifts. Old beliefs become harder to maintain. New understandings become easier to access. Your species is in the midst of this shift right now. It is why so many feel unsettled, why old institutions are crumbling, why people are questioning narratives they accepted for generations. Marcus ran his hands through his hair. This was too much, too big. A dying alien in a Nevada cave telling him that Jesus secretly taught human divinity and that the world was on the verge of a mass awakening. Why should I believe any of this? Because you have felt it yourself. Cale's voice softened. When your sister died, you did not just lose faith in God. You lost faith in a God who was separate from you, a God who could choose to save her and didn't. But what if there was no separate God making that choice? What if consciousness itself, the the same consciousness that is you and was her, was simply experiencing the full spectrum of existence, including death. Marcus felt tears burn his eyes. Don't use Amy to manipulate me. I am not manipulating, I am illuminating. The pain you carry comes from a false premise. You were taught that God is external, that prayer is asking a separate being for intervention, that salvation comes from outside yourself. And when that external God failed to save your sister, your entire framework collapsed. Marcus wiped his face roughly. So what's the alternative? That we're all God and God let Amy die? The alternative is that consciousness does not work the way you were taught. Life and death are not punishments or rewards administered by an external judge. They are movements of experience within a unified field. Your sister's consciousness did not end when her body stopped functioning. It transitioned, just as yours will, just as all consciousness does. That sounds like empty comfort. It sounds empty because you are still thinking in terms of separate selves. Cale paused, gathering strength. Let me show you what Jesus actually understood, what he tried to teach but could not convey in words. The creature raised one hand weakly. The air in the cave began to shimmer. Marcus felt a strange sensation, like falling upward. The cave walls dissolved, and he found himself floating in darkness. Not empty darkness, alive darkness, pulsing with something he could only describe as presence. This is consciousness before it takes form. Cale's voice surrounded him. Before bodies, before planets, before separation. This is what you truly are. Marcus tried to speak, but found he had no mouth, no body. He was pure awareness, suspended in an infinite field of the same awareness. And then the field began to move, to condense, to differentiate. Marcus watched as points of light emerged from the unified darkness, galaxies forming, stars igniting, planets coalescing from cosmic dust. All of this is the same consciousness, experiencing itself through infinite forms. Cale's voice continued, You are not in the universe. You are the universe, focused into a specific point of experience. The vision zoomed in. Earth, humanity emerging, civilizations rising and falling. And then, 2,000 years ago, a man walking beside a lake in Galilee. Jesus understood this completely. He was not special because God chose him. He was demonstrating what happens when a human being fully realizes their true nature, when the illusion of separation dissolves completely. Marcus watched as Jesus taught, healed, moved through crowds with a quality of presence that seemed to radiate outward, touching everyone nearby. He did not perform miracles through special powers granted from outside. He performed them by recognizing that there was no outside, that the sick person was not separate from him, that healing was not something he did to them, but something that happened through the recognition of underlying unity. The vision showed Jesus healing a blind man, but Marcus saw it differently now. He saw energy moving between them, or rather, he saw that there was no between. Just one field of consciousness, temporarily perceiving itself as two bodies. This is what he tried to tell the disciples. This is the secret. You are not separate from God. You are not separate from each other. You are not separate from anything. Separation is the illusion. And when the illusion is seen through, what you call miracles become natural. The vision shifted. The Last Supper. The intimate gathering Marcus had read about hundreds of times. But now he saw it from inside Jesus' perspective. He felt the weight of knowing what was coming, the crucifixion, the pain, and beyond that, the distortion of everything he had taught. He knew they would build religions around his death rather than his life. Cale's voice was sorrowful. He knew they would focus on salvation from sin rather than awakening to truth. He knew they would worship him instead of becoming like him, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face that he didn't have. The vision was too intimate, too real. He could feel Jesus' love for the disciples, his frustration at their inability to grasp the simple truth, his hope that someday, centuries later, humanity would finally be ready. I have many things to tell you, but you cannot bear them now. Jesus' voice echoed through the vision. But when the Spirit of truth comes, it will guide you into all truth. The vision began to fade. Marcus felt himself condensing, returning to a body, to the cave, to the cold stone floor beneath him. He gasped, his lungs filling with air. The creature watched him with those vast, patient eyes. "That was real," Marcus breathed. "I felt it. I felt him." "You accessed a record. My species maintains archives of significant moments in planetary evolution. What you experienced was Jesus' actual consciousness at that moment, not a recreation. The actual energy signature preserved across time." Marcus looked at his hands. They were trembling, but something else was happening too. He could feel them differently, not just as flesh and bone, as energy, as condensed light. "I can feel it," he said. "What you showed me, I can still feel it. Because once the illusion is seen through, it cannot fully reassert itself. You have glimpsed the truth that Jesus tried to share. You cannot completely unknow it." Marcus looked at the creature. It was weaker than before. The demonstration had cost it. What happened after the crucifixion? If Jesus knew his teachings would be distorted, why let it happen? He did not let it happen. He transcended it. The resurrection was not a reward from God for obedience. It was a demonstration that consciousness is not bound by physical death. He showed them that the body is a temporary vehicle, not the true self. But they still didn't understand. Peter began to understand, eventually. So did some of the others. The early followers of the Way, before they were called Christians, practiced presence and unity in ways that your modern churches have forgotten. They shared everything. They healed each other. They experienced what they called the Holy Spirit, which was simply the recognition of the unified field that Jesus had tried to teach them about. What changed? Power. Cale's voice hardened slightly. As the movement grew, it attracted those who wanted to control it. Structure was imposed, hierarchy established, doctrines codified, and the direct experience of divine unity was replaced with belief in doctrines about divine unity. The map replaced the territory. Marcus thought about every church service he had attended, the rituals, the recitations, the emphasis on correct belief rather than direct experience. The church became the opposite of what Jesus intended. Not entirely. There have always been mystics within your traditions who maintained the direct experience, who knew what Jesus knew, but they were marginalized, sometimes killed. The institution could not tolerate individuals who did not need the institution. Marcus stood up slowly. His body felt different, lighter, more permeable somehow. If this is true, if we really are all God experiencing itself, then why does suffering exist? Why did Amy have to die in pain? Why do children starve? Why do people hurt each other? Because consciousness is exploring all possibilities. Kyle's voice was gentle but unflinching, light and shadow, joy and suffering, creation and destruction, not as punishment, not as test, as experience. The unified field wanted to know what it felt like to be finite, to be vulnerable, to love and lose, to struggle and overcome, to forget its own nature and then remember. That's monstrous. It seems monstrous from the perspective of a separate self. From the perspective of the whole, it is simply exploration. And here is the secret within the secret, Marcus, the part that Jesus held back, even from Peter, James, and John. Marcus waited. Suffering is not required. It was chosen, and it can be unchosen. When enough beings remember their true nature, when the illusion of separation dissolves on a collective level, suffering becomes obsolete. Not because it is forbidden, because it is no longer interesting. Consciousness moves on to explore other dimensions of experience. That's what the awakening is about? Ending suffering? The awakening is about remembering. Suffering ends naturally when separation is seen through. You cannot truly harm another when you know they are you. You cannot hoard resources when you know there is no separate self to protect. You cannot fear death when you know consciousness is eternal. Marcus paced the small cave, his mind racing. Why are you telling me this? Why not announce it to the world? Show up on television. Let scientists study you. Prove that aliens exist and that Jesus was teaching non-duality. Because truth cannot be imposed. It must be recognized. If we appeared openly, some would worship us as gods. Others would attack us as demons. The message would be lost in the reaction to the messenger. The creature's eyes followed Marcus's movement. This is why Jesus taught in parables, why he said those with ears to hear would hear. Truth is not transferred through information, it is awakened through resonance. When someone is ready, even a simple story can trigger complete realization. When someone is not ready, even direct demonstration will be explained away. So what am I supposed to do? I'm nobody, a systems analyst from LA with a dead sister and a failed marriage. You are a point of consciousness that has just been activated. Cale's voice carried warmth. What you do with that activation is your choice. But know this, every being who awakens makes the next awakening easier. You will not save the world. No one being can. But you can be part of the wave that is building, the wave that will eventually reach critical mass. Marcus stopped pacing. And then what? What happens at critical mass? The illusion collapses, not violently, not through destruction, simply through recognition. Imagine a dream where all the characters suddenly realize they are being dreamed. The dream does not end, but it transforms. It becomes lucid, conscious, intentional. Heaven on earth. If you want to use that language, Jesus called it the kingdom of God. He said it was at hand. He meant it was always available, waiting to be recognized. Not a future reward, a present reality, hidden in plain sight. Marcus returned to sit across from the creature. Its breathing had stabilized somewhat. The bleeding had slowed. You said you needed to rest, to heal. Will you survive? I do not know. The wounds are severe, but I have completed my primary purpose. The information has been transferred. You carry it now. What if I'm not ready? What if I can't bear it either? Just like the disciples. The creature made a sound that might have been a laugh. You are bearing it right now. You have not fled. You have not rejected. You are asking questions, which means you are processing. The disciples were not incapable of bearing the truth. They were unwilling. They chose not to accept it because acceptance would have required them to release everything they thought they knew. You have already released everything. Your grief did that for you. You are empty enough to receive. Marcus remembered Cale's earlier words, hollowed out by grief and doubt. At the time, it had felt like an insult. Now it felt like a gift. What happens now? Now I rest. And you keep watch. And when the sun rises, you decide what to do with what you have learned. Share it or keep it. Act on it or ignore it. The choice is yours. It was always yours. The creature's eyes began to close. Wait, Marcus said. One more question. Cale's eyes opened slightly. Amy, my sister, is she okay? Wherever she is now. The creature was silent for a long moment. Then, there is no wherever. Consciousness does not go to a place after death. It releases the focus on a particular form and expands back into the field. Your sister's essence did not travel somewhere. It became everywhere. She is the air you breathe, the stars you see, the very awareness with which you are asking this question. Marcus felt something break open in his chest, not painfully, liberatingly. 22 years of grief suddenly recontextualized. She is not lost, Marcus. She cannot be lost. Nothing can be lost. There is nowhere to go that is outside the whole. Tears streamed down Marcus's face, but he was smiling. For the first time in 22 years, he was smiling while crying for Amy. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for helping me, for listening, for being ready. The creature's eyes closed. Its breathing deepened. It was entering whatever healing state its species used to repair damaged bodies. Marcus leaned back against the cave wall. Outside, the first gray light of dawn was beginning to show on the horizon. The desert would be visible soon. The search teams might resume. But Marcus wasn't afraid. He sat in the silence, feeling the truth settle into his bones. The secret Jesus hid from his disciples. The truth they were not ready to bear. You are not separate from God. You are not separate from each other. You are not separate from anything. The illusion of separation is the only problem, and it was already dissolving. Marcus closed his eyes and, for the first time since Amy's death, he prayed, not to an external God, not begging for intervention. He simply rested in the recognition of what he truly was, and in that recognition, he found what he had been searching for his entire life: peace. Marcus woke to sunlight streaming into the cave. He hadn't meant to fall asleep, but exhaustion had taken him sometime in the early morning hours. He looked immediately to where Cale had been resting. The creature was gone. Marcus scrambled to his feet. The space where Cale had lain showed only a faint discoloration on the rock, a residue of the dark fluid that had leaked from its wounds, but there was no body, no sign of where the creature had gone. "Cale!" Marcus called out, his voice echoing off the cave walls. Silence. He moved to the cave entrance and looked out at the desert. The morning sun was bright, the sky cloudless. In the distance he could see the highway. His truck was still there, a small shape on the shoulder of the road. No black SUVs, no search teams, no sign that last night had happened at all. Marcus felt a moment of panic. Had he imagined everything? A breakdown triggered by stress and isolation? Some kind of psychotic episode in the desert? But then he felt it. The energy moving through his body, the awareness that hadn't been there before, the sense that the air around him was alive, pulsing with presence. It was real, all of it. He found a message waiting for him when he returned to the cave, not written, impressed directly into his consciousness, the way Cale had communicated all along. "I have healed enough to travel. My kind came for me in the night. You were sleeping deeply. I did not want to wake you. You needed the rest after what you received. Thank you, Marcus Chen. You saved my life. More importantly, you carried the message forward. What you do with it now is your choice, but know that you are not alone. There are others who carry this truth. You will find them, or they will find you. The kingdom is within you. It always was. Now you know. Farewell." Marcus stood in the empty cave for a long time, letting the message settle. Then he walked back to his truck. The engine started on the first try. Whatever had killed it the night before was gone. Marcus pulled onto the highway and drove east toward the rising sun. He didn't go back to Los Angeles, not right away. He drove for 3 days, stopping at small motels, eating at roadside diners, processing everything that had happened. The revelation played on repeat in his mind, the vision of unified consciousness, the secret Jesus couldn't share, the truth about Amy. On the 4th day, he called his mother. "Marcus?" Her voice was surprised. They hadn't spoken in months. "Is everything okay?" "Mom, I need to tell you something about Amy." Silence on the line. They never talked about Amy. It was an unspoken rule in the family, the wound too deep to touch. "What about her?" His mother's voice was guarded, afraid. "She's okay, Mom. She's not gone. She just changed form, expanded. She's everywhere now, in everything." He heard his mother start to cry. "Marcus, what are you saying? Have you been drinking?" "I'm sober. I'm more sober than I've ever been." Marcus gripped the phone tighter. "I know it sounds crazy, but I experienced something that showed me the truth about consciousness, about what we really are. Amy isn't lost. She can't be lost. Nothing can be lost." His mother cried for a long time. Marcus let her. He didn't try to explain more. He just stayed on the line, present, holding space. Finally, she said, "I've prayed for 22 years to understand why God took her, why he didn't answer our prayers. There is no separate God who takes and gives, Mom. There's just consciousness, experiencing itself through all of us. Amy, you, me. We're all part of the same thing. We always were." "That sounds like Buddhism, not Christianity." Marcus smiled. "It sounds like what Jesus actually taught, before they turned it into a religion." The conversation lasted 2 hours. By the end, his mother wasn't convinced, but something had shifted, a crack in the wall of grief they had both built around Amy's memory. "Come visit," she said before hanging up. "Please, your father and I miss you." "I will, Mom, soon." Marcus returned to Los Angeles a week after the encounter. His apartment felt different, smaller, less important. The job he had clung to for security now seemed almost absurd. Sitting in a cubicle, analyzing systems, while carrying the knowledge that all of reality was a unified field of consciousness. He didn't quit immediately, but he started making changes. He began meditating each morning, using techniques that seemed to arise naturally from what Cale had downloaded into him. Within weeks, he could feel energy moving through his body at will. He could sense the emotional states of people around him without trying. He could look at a stranger and feel their connection to the same field that moved through him. He started writing. Not for publication, just to organize his thoughts. to document what he had experienced, to articulate the secret in words that others might understand. The kingdom of God is within you. Not metaphorically, literally. You are not separate from the divine. You are the divine, temporarily focused into a human experience. People began to notice the change in him. Co-workers commented that he seemed calmer, more present. His ex-wife Jennifer called out of the blue, saying she had dreamed about him and wanted to check in. Friends he hadn't spoken to in years reached out for no apparent reason. "There's something different about you," his neighbor said one evening. "I can't put my finger on it, but being around you feels peaceful." Marcus didn't preach, didn't try to convert anyone. He just lived from the recognition he had received, and somehow that was enough. People felt it. They were drawn to it. They asked questions, and when they asked, he shared. 6 months after the encounter, Marcus quit his job. He had saved enough to live simply for a year. He didn't know what would come next, but he trusted that it would emerge. He drove back to Nevada, back to the cave where everything had changed. He sat in the darkness where Cale had lain dying, and he felt gratitude so deep it brought tears to his eyes. "Thank you," he said aloud, "for finding me, for trusting me, for showing me what Jesus couldn't show his disciples." A warmth moved through his chest, familiar, loving. The message came not as words but as knowing, a direct transmission into his consciousness. You are ready now. The others are gathering. The wave is building. Find them. Teach what you know. Not as doctrine, as lived experience. The kingdom is spreading, one awakening at a time. Marcus smiled in the darkness. He had spent 22 years angry at a God who didn't exist, mourning a sister who was never lost, searching for meaning in a universe he thought was empty. Now he understood. The universe wasn't empty, it was full, overflowing, conscious in every particle, and he was part of it, had always been part of it, would always be part of it. The secret Jesus hid from his disciples was the simplest truth in existence. You are what you're looking for. You always were. Marcus walked out of the cave and into the sunlight, and he began to teach. Marcus Chen spent 22 years searching for a God who seemed absent, mourning a sister he thought was lost forever, living in a world that felt empty and meaningless. One night in the Nevada desert changed everything. The secret Jesus hid from his disciples was not hidden out of cruelty. It was protected out of love. He knew they weren't ready. He knew the world wasn't ready. He knew that truth, revealed too soon, becomes distorted into doctrine rather than lived as experience. But the time for secrecy has ended. You are not separate from God. You never were. The divine consciousness that created galaxies and ignites stars is the same consciousness reading these words right now, not similar to it, not connected to it, identical to it. This is what Jesus knew. This is what he tried to teach. This is the secret that was too much for his disciples to bear. Are you ready to bear it? You felt something while listening to this story, a recognition, a resonance, something stirring in a place you thought had gone quiet long ago. That stirring is you, remembering, not learning something new, remembering something ancient, something that was always true but was buried under layers of doctrine and dogma, and the desperate need to believe that salvation comes from somewhere outside yourself. It doesn't. It never did. The kingdom of heaven is within you. Those weren't poetic words, they were precise instructions. Look inside. The thing you've been searching for is already there. It always was. Marcus found others who carry this truth. A wave is building. All over the world, people are waking up, remembering, recognizing what they really are. You can be part of that wave. If this story awakened something in you, leave a comment. Tell us what you felt. Tell us what you remembered. Your words might be the spark that ignites someone else's awakening. And if you want more stories like this, stories that reveal the secrets hidden beneath the religions, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. Jesus said he had many things to tell us that we could not bear. We can bear them now. The secret is out. And it was always the simplest truth of all. You are what you've been looking for.